as your beneficiary. Yeah, they got 10 years to pay the taxes, but what makes you think they aren't going to take the whole thing out, maybe even forget to pay the taxes, and then just blow all the money? Hi, this is Jeffrey G. Marsacci, the Plain English Attorney, and welcome to the video. Today we're going to talk about the biggest mistake that people make when they have a revocable living trust. All right, so let's talk just a little bit about what a revocable living trust is. A revocable living trust is a great way to set up your estate so it avoids the probate court process. Now everybody knows about, oh, well, there's the last will and testament, and my attorney said to get a will, and my friend said I need to get a will, I need to get a will, I need to get a will. Look, a will lists instructions to a court. Here's how I want my estate in court to be administered. Do you really want to be in court? No, most people don't. And you hear all of these horror stories about probate and how long it takes and how it takes so much time. It's so expensive. It eats up so much money. Everybody's frustrated. Well, why would you intentionally put your estate into the probate court system if there was a way to avoid it? All right. So a lot of people take that smart move of going to an estate planning attorney, and they will set up a revocable living trust as a way to avoid probate. All right, so what are these big mistakes that people will sometimes make when they have a revocable living trust? Well, there are a few of them. The first, and honestly, I put this on the attorney an awful lot of the time, they don't, quote, fund the trust the right way once the attorney has it set up. Now, some attorneys will actually do the funding, but it ends up being a little more complicated and expensive a process. Why? Because banks don't want to talk to the attorney. Financial advisors don't want to talk to the attorney. They want to talk to you. And so the paperwork to let the attorney do it for you ends up being quite a bit, and therefore it's expensive in legal fees. So in a lot of cases, for at least with my firm, we're handling any North Carolina deeds to move real estate into the trust, but we're not going down to the bank and moving items and changing that stuff, but we provide an awful lot of instruction. In fact, I've got a course, trustfundingcourse.com, and for our clients, we are giving them now 3 months worth of that course for free just to help them along after we're providing the general recommendations for what to do with funding a trust. So if you get this trust, you get it set up, great. What's the next step? Well, again, it's funding the trust. And so when we're working through with our clients, we have the signing of the documents, and then we have a very specific meeting, usually a few weeks after, where we run through all the different accounts and assets, and then we'll put together written recommendations. It's in an Excel spreadsheet, but it lists each account, how it's titled now, and the recommended action.
If you think it's important for educational videos like this to get out there, then please help us out by subscribing to the channel.
And we tell our clients the easiest thing to do is, say it's like a bank account. Go down to the bank, bring your big blue binder, bring the recommendations and say, here, the attorney said to do this. Because each financial institution has its own forms to go through and make it happen, either retitling assets into the name of the trust, making the trust the pay on death beneficiary, making other people the pay on death beneficiary because there's a tax reason. Okay, all of that we go through with our clients. Here are the basics, and we're going to put a link below to the free trust funding webinar that we put together so that you can take a look at some of the problems that happen when people don't do it the right way. But here are just the basics. And don't take this as legal advice, please, because every situation is different. And sometimes it makes sense to do things a little bit differently, but that's part of my job with my clients. So generally, with bank accounts, we tell our clients bank accounts generally should be titled in the name of the trust. So this way, the trust is the actual owner. Now, are you giving up control of it? Well, no. If it's your trust, the way we set it up, you're the trustor, you're the trustee, you're the beneficiary. You can do everything that you need to do. Sometimes the bank wants to see a copy of the trust or just a trust abstract to make sure that it's on the level. You can go ahead and make all of the changes you want, take money out, whatever you want to do. That shouldn't change. But the ownership on the account to avoid probate ends up being titled in the name of the trust. Sometimes, even with the checks, they're happy to just put your names on it, but the internal paperwork is saying, no, it's owned by the trust. Well, what's the big snag? Well, what I'm generally looking at with the history, most banks kind of did it anyway, but it became a very firm rule with penalties if they didn't do it this way. After 9/11, with the Patriot Act, banks cannot open an account in the name of an individual using their ID and all that information and then transfer ownership into something like a corporation or an LLC or a revocable living trust. Well, why? What was happening? Terrorists were using bank accounts set up under an individual. They put all of this money in, and then they would move it to a trust or an LLC or some other structure, and then they would transfer the ownership over to members of the terrorist group. And now the money was theirs. The bank had no idea about that transfer. Okay, so what do they do now? They will tell you at the bank, oh, we can't move your existing account into your revocable living trust. We can set up a new account in the name of the trust and move the money. Is that okay? Well, that is okay, except any of your automatic deposits or your automatic bill pay and money going out each month, those all have to be redone because it's now a different account number. Oh, that's way too much for me to deal with. I don't want to deal with it. Look, I get that. So most of the time, my clients with that one account, they call it their operating account. That's where all their money comes in and all their money goes out each month. And then they have other accounts for the real savings, the money that's supposed to stay there and grow and accumulate and be safe, but it's not the stuff that's coming in and out each month. All right, we'll move all those other accounts into the name of the trust, but that one account, all right, we will just make that payable upon death to the trust and make sure in case of incapacity that the powers of attorney that were executed are okay. So that's your bank stuff. All right, what about stuff like real estate? Yep, definitely should be titled in the name of the trust wherever it is, as long as it's fully yours. If it's in a limited liability company or something, no, don't move that in. You're potentially moving your limited liability company into the trust, not the real estate. What about things like brokerage accounts, mutual funds, stuff that's your after-tax dollars? Yes. Title that into the name of the revocable living trust. I don't see the same type of rules as you do with banking accounts as you do with the stocks, bonds, and mutual funds working with a registered broker because they have their own background checks and checking things out to make sure that this isn't something that's being changed. And they typically do want to at least see a trust abstract, if not the full version of the trust, so they can list who the successor trustees are and have that all on file in case anything happens to you. All right. What about things like IRAs and 401ks and things like that? Well, retirement accounts need to be set up one of three ways. First, if you're married, typically the spouse is the pay on death beneficiary at the primary levels, and it would be the contingent beneficiary. Oh, I don't have a spouse or partner? All right, then this is the three options for your primary beneficiary. One, it can go to the trust. Okay, that's fine. However, there are different taxation rules because this is all pre-tax money. If it goes into the revocable living trust after you pass on, there's a 5-year even payout rule. So those taxes are paid by the beneficiaries in their proportions and at their tax level over 5 years. Okay. Is there a better tax option? Well, yeah, you can name the beneficiary as the actual beneficiary directly. And now they have 10 years that they can do it. 10 years, but it doesn't have to come out evenly. It's entirely up to them what's going to make best tax sense. They can take more out in 1 year if for whatever reason their income is lower because they're in the lower brackets, or they have a really good year. Okay, they're going to take out less, but it's all going to come out within 10 years. Well, why would you do that? That's twice as long to take it out. Because if it's going to them directly, none of the age limits, the trustee's in charge of it. So, okay, you go ahead and name an 18-year-old high school dropout as your beneficiary. Yeah, they got 10 years to pay the taxes, but what makes you think they aren't going to take the whole thing out, maybe even forget to pay the taxes, and then just blow all the money? Sometimes the protection is more important. Well, what if you absolutely need the protection and you absolutely want the 10 years? All right, this is when you're starting to bring in specialized IRA trusts that can do both, but it's a little more expensive to set them up. There's more administration that has to happen. So you really got to kind of make it worthwhile to do it. And again, general rule of thumb, about 500,000 or 600,000 per beneficiary. That's when you would set up the IRA trust for them, for those beneficiaries. What's the exception? Well, look, if it's enough money and it's a beneficiary that's on disability or Medicaid, it's a special needs beneficiary, sometimes you're looking at a much lower amount to potentially protect them. Even if you have other beneficiaries that would benefit from the 10-year rule, okay, you can do an IRA trust for that beneficiary and name the other individuals separately, and they all get the 10 years. Right? What about stuff like life insurance? Haven't seen too many issues with life insurance, so you don't have to make the owner the trust. You just have to make the trust the pay on death beneficiary. And this is whether it's you've got a spouse involved or not. There's no tax reason that it should go to the spouse rather than the trust. And if you set up a joint revocable trust with the spouse or even a partner, they're generally taking over the trust anyway, and they can use the money for themselves however they want. However, if you, quote, die in the incorrect order, there's a chance that that money could end up in probate if you name the individual and then the trust, just name the trust. And it just all ends up working out as long as your trust is structured the right way. So that's the trust funding piece. The biggest mistake is my clients or anyone getting a revocable living trust set up, but not funding it. All right, what's that second big mistake? It's thinking once it's done, you don't have anything to worry about. You don't have any upkeep. And this is typically what happens when people go to attorneys and they do wills. It's like, okay, just let us know if there are any changes you need to make to the documents. People may not have changes they want to make to the actual plan, but they may have changes that are needed because they made changes to their finances, their investments, their property. Oh, we moved and we ended up getting the house in our individual names. So this could be 3, 4, 5 years later. And they're sitting down with me again. It's like, oh, yeah, we moved. Well, did you put the new house in the name of the trust? Oh, no, we didn't. Okay. And this happened years ago. It was one of the bigger banks, not going to name names here, although I tend to go ahead and name the names when I'm meeting with my clients. Big bank, they decided they wanted to do a $5 a month ATM fee if you had a debit card, whether you actually took money out of an ATM or not. Each month you'd get charged that $5. Oh, this is ridiculous. I'm not going to do this. Forget it. I'm moving all my money. And everybody went bananas, but nobody thought about their trust. So what happened is they took their money, went to another bank, and they were still fuming over that $5 a month ATM fee. And so they end up setting up the new account in their individual names and not in the name of the trust. This is one of the reasons why, for my clients, we do an annual review meeting. We always offer that to our clients at a much reduced rate compared to what we usually do, just as a checkup. So this way we can see, are your assets still lined up? Do you still have the right people in line? Have there been any tax changes since we last spoke? And I also talk a little bit about long-term care planning. And if you check the description below, there's going to be a link to our free webinar on paying for long-term care. And a lot of the times that's almost exactly how I run through long-term care with my own clients in that free webinar. So that's the annual review meeting. So the second mistake is not keeping up with your revocable living trust as you change assets and as things change. I can't tell you the number of times, and it kills me every time because I spend a lot of time working with my clients to get a revocable living trust set up the right way. And then it's 7, 8, 9 years later, the kids are coming back to me. Oh, yeah, mom and dad passed on. We need to talk about settling the estate. And then we find out somewhere between a third and half of their assets changed, and they set it up in a way that's going to have it go into probate. So this is why I always encourage my clients to spend the time each year. Let's go ahead and do that annual review meeting and just make sure. So biggest mistake, not funding your trust right to begin with. Second mistake, not staying on top of things. So if you've got a revocable living trust, check and make sure you still have all of your assets lined up. I've heard a lot of people yell and scream about, oh, don't do a living trust. It got screwed up and everything went into probate anyway. And it's no. This is like going to a store and buying a really good suitcase. Best suitcase in the world. Going to protect everything, make everything fantastic. Okay, so you're going and you're making that trip. You get on the airplane, you check in the suitcase, you get to the hotel and you open it up, and there's nothing in the suitcase. Well, why is there nothing in the suitcase? Because you didn't pack everything into the suitcase. This suitcase is terrible. I don't have anything I need. No. It's the revocable living trust needs to be funded the right way. So please take that information, check out the free resources. Now, as I always tell my clients, please stay safe, plan ahead, and enjoy life. And if you really want to help us out, please just like this video. Those clicks and likes are all free, and they help spread the word. And the other thing I always tell my clients is, please, whatever you do, make it a great day, and we will see you in the next video.